Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Feel Good Factor. I'm Susmita Veganosaurus. If this is your first time here, this is a podcast about prioritizing joy, fulfillment, and well being in your business, your work, your day to day life, and creative endeavors. I'm so glad you're here today. Earlier, I was reading a newsletter by Oliver Berkman. It's called The Imperfectionist. I love reading his work. I've read both his books, at least two of his books. He may have others. And one is called 4,000 Weeks, and the other one is called Meditation for Mortals. I've spoken about both of them so many times on this podcast here, and I've also written about them in my newsletter. I often refer to Oliver Berkman and his writing. By the way, my newsletter, if you'd like to sign up, it's called the Feel Good Tribe. Go to veganosaurus.com/newsletter and enter your details, sign up. You'll get a confirmation email. You have to hit confirm, then you'll get added to the mailing list and you'll receive a welcome email. Read it, reply to it. I'd love to connect with you and get to know you. Anyway, as I was reading Oliver's newsletter, there was a term that he used called high reward. So he talks about how all of us, whenever we pursue any kind of activity, he spoke about writing, but generally anything at all, we always gauge it in our mind and we think, okay, it's worth doing only if there is a high reward. So we're always pursuing high reward activities. But that is not the best way to live, right? It's just that we expect that. We think that whatever we do, whatever we learn, create, pursue, we feel like, oh, it has to reward us in a big way, it has to mean something, otherwise, it's pointless, it's useless. That's a pretty sad way to live. See, the reason to pursue anything, to learn anything, to try your hand at anything is not about the reward, but about the feeling of flow and sense of fulfillment just because you're doing it, just because you're involved in it, just because you're learning something new or trying something out. It's not about how it'll pay off in the end, but how it pays off during the process of exploring it. And we often forget that. I mean, I've been guilty of it often also before, but not anymore. I constantly, consciously try to pursue things, try to do things because I feel like doing it, because it has stoked my interest. It feels like, okay, I want to learn this, I want to know more about it. And even if I'm never going to use it in any way, even if it isn't going to lead to something obvious, I still pursue it. I still study it or try it out, even if I'm not great at it, if it doesn't, like if it's a creative activity and I know the result's going to be very amateurish and, silly, I'll still pursue it because I feel like doing it. And then the joy of just being involved in it and the flow of it, that itself is a reward in itself. So, in while trying to get high rewards and trying to follow the path of high reward, we often miss out on all the medium and tiny rewards. And those, they add up big time over life. I was having lunch with a friend a couple of months ago, and she was talking about, I'd gifted her one of my handmade pieces of jewelry, a necklace, and she loves my handmade jewelry. And, I used to do that longer. I used to make these, and I'd have an Etsy store. Long before anyone in India made handmade jewelry, I used to make them. And my customer base, most of it wasn't even in India because people didn't really have any interest or value for handmade, handcrafted jewelry. Back then, of course, it's become such a much loved, very common thing now to see lots of jewelry makers making beautiful stuff with their hands and selling it. But back then, not so much, to the point that I had a bunch of newspapers, magazines come and take photos and write articles about it, because it was such a novel idea of somebody hand making jewelry. uh, so when I gave that necklace to my friend, she, of course, she looked at it and she admired it. She said it's beautiful, all that. And then she said something that miffed me a little bit. She said, you know, so many people are doing that now. Back when you started it, nobody was doing it. If you had continued to do it, how far you would have reached. Of course, before she could even complete that sentence, she looked at my face and she stopped. So I had a mix of feelings towards this. One is this thing of, why take away the joy of something small by putting pressure on someone to make it into something big, and worse is making them feel bad that they didn't make it big. Of course, she didn't intend that way. She's one of my closest, one of my best friends, but she was saying it out of concern, except that yeah, it wasn't really a very nice thing to say in that moment, very nice suggestion, because it's something that anything where you tell someone, oh, you should have done this in the past, where they can't change it, first of all, that's not kind, that's not a nice thing to say. And then on top of that, this thought of, okay, I should have stuck to one line and pursued it, and we don't know where I would have gotten, but just the fact that I should have done it at all, that putting that kind of pressure in such a way that maybe I should do that in the future. I didn't quite like it, but then I took a moment. She stopped saying it, and then she looked at me, and I took a moment, took a couple of breaths, a sip of my peanut butter banana smoothie to calm down. And then I told her, I said, yeah, see, if I had, maybe, yes, I would have had a very successful brand right now. The jewelry making brand would have been much more successful, more well known, blah, 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 all those things. But then I would have missed out on all the other things, other ventures and businesses and creative endeavors that I've pursued in my life, because I stopped making the jewelry. It freed me up to do the other stuff. So, whatever reward I got for doing it at that point, that was enough for me. I've always been someone to switch paths, keep changing things, go with the flow of what life brings me. And at that point of time, because I moved out the jewelry, is how I got into my restaurant and, put in a lot of work there. And then, of course, once we shut down the restaurant, though I was sad, I was able to move, get out of that feeling of sadness much faster and move on to the next thing, because all my life I've always been moving on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and following life's flow like very easily, instead of resisting it and feeling like, oh no, this didn't work out, oh no, what's next. Of course I had all those feelings, the feeling of fear and all these things, but I was able to get over them much faster, because I'm not targeting high rewards all the time. I'm not targeting that, for a certain outcome. I'm like, if I do something, it has to give this kind of outcome. And I've become much more flexible with it over the years, even more and more and more. And pursuing things which are not necessarily giving me a high reward, or which I don't expect to give me a high reward. Things that give me the little rewards, the tiny ones, the medium ones, average ones. I'm very, very happy and content in my life by doing that. The little rewards, like I say, they add up. And then when you look back on life, on your day to day and the feelings, at least I've seen that I have much better days, happier days than I did when I was pursuing a high reward goal with a lot of trying to control the situation, trying to feel anxious about it and wanting things to work out only a specific certain way. Letting go of that and like, okay, I'm going to do this for the sake of doing. Whatever reward comes, it comes. And I feel like some of these do lead to very high reward in the end too, but that's not the point. That doesn't matter. What matters is the joy of pursuing something. And yes, not just a joy and fulfillment, okay? Sometimes when you're doing something again and again and again, like Oliver's point of writing, a lot of people get so stuck up on the purpose of writing. Where will this lead to? Where will I publish this? What will people think? The outer external purpose, the end goal of that writing, that they get stuck in the writing itself. They're not able to do it. So when it comes to something like writing, for example, doing it, writing those few words, not expecting anything out of it, that gives you practice. It's a muscle you're building, and that applies to anything in life. Without expecting a high reward, just apply that, put in that work, keep practicing, apply that muscle there. And over time, yes, it improves and it grows and it becomes, most importantly, more than the improvement, more than anything else, it becomes easier and easier to do. And you kind of understand, how much you want to dedicate yourself to something, and you also understand how much to step away from it, really how much of your time, attention, effort, creativity a certain thing deserves. And until you let go of the questioning, okay, how will this serve me in the long run, every single time, if you let go of that, you won't be able to keep pursuing something and trying things out, because you're always thinking of, okay, how will this pay off, what is the end result. So yeah, that's about it for today. Oliver's email really inspired me, and here I am talking to you about it. So if you've been stopping yourself from pursuing something because you don't feel like it's going to have a high reward, then think again. If it's something you really want to do, try, learn, do it. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And yes, if you like this podcast episode, then you're going to enjoy my newsletter, The Feel Good Tribe. Go to veganosaurus.com/newsletter. The link is in the show notes. And sign up. Thank you. Talk to you again next week. Take care. Bye.